The suite is already occupied.
My reservation is still active. It does show your reservation. Then why am I the one being moved? My name was on the reservation before it was on that screen.
At 10:40 on a gray Seattle morning, Nathan Cole stepped through the glass doors of the Horizon Crest Signature Lounge with a carry-on in one hand. And 48 minutes of work he had no intention of wasting. SeaTac moved beyond the tall windows in layers of motion, aircraft easing away from gates, service vehicles crossing wet pavement, travelers flowing past in dark coats beneath the pale terminal lights. Inside the lounge, everything had been designed to make time feel less urgent. Soft chairs faced the runway. Coffee steamed behind a stone counter. Low conversations blended with the muted clink of silverware. Nathan barely noticed any of it. Nathan, a black man in his mid-40s, wore a charcoal travel jacket over a plain crewneck sweater, dark pants, and walking shoes chosen for airports rather than appearances. The only thing on him with much history was the silver watch at his wrist, its leather strap worn smooth from years of use. He checked it once, then approached the entry pedestal and held his phone beneath the scanner. A clean green circle appeared. "Welcome, Mr. Cole." Nathan nodded to the lounge host and kept walking. His flight to Boston would not board for several hours, but noon mattered more than departure time. At 12 sharp, he was expected on a confidential video call involving outside counsel and 2 board members. The subject could not be discussed in a crowded lounge, at a restaurant table, or anywhere a stranger might hear half a sentence and misunderstand the rest. 3 days earlier, Nathan had reserved Quiet Work Suite 6 from 11:30 to 12:30. He had chosen the time carefully, leaving himself enough room to settle in, review his notes, and make the call without rushing. At 11:28, he closed the document on his phone and walked past the business center toward a short hallway lined with frosted glass doors. Suite 4, Suite 5, Suite 6. He stopped. The door was partly open. A woman was already inside. She looked to be in her late 50s, composed in a cream blazer with silver blonde hair swept neatly behind one ear. A laptop sat open in front of her. Beside it rested a ceramic coffee cup, a leather folder, and several pages marked with blue pen. Headphones lay around her neck. Nothing about the scene suggested someone who had wandered into the wrong room for a minute. She had settled in. Nathan looked at the brass number on the door, then at his phone. Quiet Work Suite 6. 11:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Nathan Cole. He checked the time. 11:31. For a second he simply stood there. He had spent enough years traveling to know that small mistakes happened. Gates changed. Reservations crossed. Someone read a number too quickly. Most problems became smaller when people started with that assumption. He knocked lightly against the frame. The woman looked up. "Excuse me, I have this room reserved at 11:30. Her eyes moved first to his face, then to the phone in his hand. She did not look at the door number. She did not reach for her own confirmation. Instead, she leaned back slightly in the chair. "I use this suite every time I'm here." Her tone was calm, almost conversational, as though she were explaining a local custom he had not yet learned. Nathan waited a beat. "I understand, but I have it reserved today." Something tightened around her mouth. Not anger. Irritation, perhaps, at having a routine interrupted. "There are other work areas outside." Nathan turned his head toward the business center. She was right in the narrowest possible sense. There were desks outside. Every one of them sat in an open room where phone calls, keyboard taps, and passing conversations traveled freely. None had a door. None offered privacy. When Nathan looked back, the woman had already turned her attention toward her laptop, as though the matter had been settled. He did not step inside. He did not raise his voice. "Then we should probably check the reservation." This time she looked at him fully. Something small passed through her expression. Surprise more than offense. Nathan could tell she had expected him to take one of the other desks and let the moment disappear. He could also tell she had no idea why he would not. For now he preferred to keep it that way. Megan Foster arrived less than a minute later, carrying a slim tablet against her palm as she moved down the hallway with the quick, controlled pace of someone used to solving problems before they spread. She was 32. neatly dressed in the Horizon Crest Lounge uniform, her dark hair pinned back, her expression attentive without looking alarmed. "Good morning," she said, glancing first at Nathan, then at Evelyn. "I understand there's a question about Suite 6. Nathan stepped slightly aside so she could see the number on the door. "I have it reserved from 11:30. Megan nodded and opened the reservation system. She did not assume anything. Her thumb moved across the screen, then stopped. Suite 6 reserved, Nathan Cole, 11:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. She looked up at Nathan, then turned toward Evelyn. "Mrs. Whitmore, Mr. Cole does have the reservation." For a second, the matter seemed finished. Evelyn's expression shifted, but only slightly. She set one hand on the edge of the desk, as if steadying a point she had already decided was reasonable. "The host who was here earlier told me I could use it if it was open." Megan's eyes returned to the tablet. "Let me check that." She opened the guest notes and scrolled. There it was, entered months earlier by another employee. "Whitmore prefers Suite 6 when available." Megan read it twice. The note explained how Evelyn had gotten there, but it did not change the reservation in front of her. "When available." That was the part that mattered. Suite 6 had stopped being available at 11:30. Evelyn glanced at the small clock in the corner of her laptop. "I only need another 40 minutes." The request was delivered gently enough to sound almost modest. Nathan said nothing. Megan opened Evelyn's profile. Summit Elite, long history with the airline. Then she pulled up Nathan's account. Her eyes paused for half a second. Summit Elite as well. The surprise reached her face before she could stop it, a faint lift of the brows quickly gone. Nathan noticed. He had seen that small correction before, the moment when information forced someone to revise an assumption they had never admitted making. He let it pass. Megan searched the lounge map. Suite 1 was occupied. Suite 2 had a reservation beginning in 5 minutes. Suites 3 through 5 were blocked through noon. Suite 7 had a scheduled call beginning at 11:45, and Suite 8 was already in use. She checked again, perhaps hoping the system would offer a solution the first search had missed. It did not, Mr. Cole, she said, turning toward him. "There is a workstation at the far end of the business center. It has privacy panels on both sides, and it's usually one of the quieter areas." Nathan looked past her toward the open room. The desk, she meant, sat against the far wall, separated from the others by dark dividers that rose perhaps 2 feet above the tabletop. People moved behind it. Someone was speaking into a headset 3 desks away. A coffee machine hissed near the entrance. Nathan brought his attention back to Megan. "Is there another private room?" Megan hesitated just long enough to make the answer clear before she gave it. "Not at the moment." Nathan nodded once. No frustration in the gesture, no argument gathering behind it. "Then I need the one I reserved." Evelyn shifted in her chair. Megan looked from the tablet to the room and back again. The facts were still simple. The room belonged to Nathan's reservation. Yet the longer the 3 of them stood there, the less simple the decision seemed to feel. Evelyn checked the time again, this time without pretending she was not doing it. Her fingers touched the edge of her laptop, then the blue-marked pages beside it. The calm she had carried when Nathan first appeared was beginning to thin. "I've flown with Horizon Crest for almost 20 years, she said. "They've always taken care of this." Nathan stood just outside the doorway, one hand resting loosely at his side. "I'm sure they have." Evelyn looked at him as if the answer should have ended the conversation in her favor. "Then you understand." Nathan's gaze moved briefly to the note still open on Megan's tablet, then back to Evelyn. "I understand you prefer the room." A small silence opened between them. It was not dramatic. No one raised a voice. But the sentence removed something Evelyn had been relying on. Preference sounded different when called preference. Less like policy. Less like entitlement earned through years of travel. She shifted in the chair. "And you can work somewhere else." Nathan looked at her for a moment. "Why me?" Megan's eyes lifted from the tablet. The question was quiet enough that it should have disappeared into the lounge noise. Instead, it seemed to sharpen the space around them. Evelyn blinked once. "Because I'm already set up." Nathan glanced at the clock mounted near the hallway entrance. You were set up before my reservation started. It started 10 minutes ago. Megan checked automatically. 11:40. He was right. Evelyn saw her do it. A trace of color rose into her cheeks, more from irritation than embarrassment. Surely we don't need to make this into a bigger issue. Nathan's expression did not change. I'm trying to make it smaller. I just need the room on my reservation. That was all. No accusation. No speech about fairness. No demand that anyone explain what kind of person deserved a private suite. Nathan had learned years ago that when the facts were clean, adding too many words usually helped the other person more than it helped him. Evelyn exhaled and turned toward Megan. I have a call starting soon. Megan nodded. I understand. A scheduled call, Evelyn added, as though the distinction mattered. With people who are already expecting me. Nathan almost smiled at the symmetry of it, but did not. So do I, he said. Evelyn looked at him quickly. It was the first time he had revealed even that much. Megan caught the exchange and felt the problem shift under her feet. Until that moment, she had been treating the situation as one guest who needed a preferred space and another who could perhaps be persuaded to accept a substitute. Now both had schedules, both had status, both had legitimate reasons to want privacy. Only one had a reservation. Several yards away, Sophie Grant sat at a long walnut table with her laptop open and a stack of essays beside it. Red comments marked the margins of the paper on her screen, but she had stopped reading the same paragraph 3 times ago. Sophie taught American history at a public high school outside Portland and had spent enough years in classrooms to recognize the difference between disagreement and imbalance. She had heard Megan confirm Nathan's name. She had heard the note about Evelyn's preference. She had heard Nathan ask the question that no one had answered. Why me? Sophie did not reach for her phone. She did not turn openly toward them. She simply removed one earbud and set it beside her laptop. Back at Suite 6, Megan drew a slow breath. Let me get my manager, she said. Evelyn leaned back, relieved to hear the problem moving upward. Nathan gave a small nod. He did not look relieved at all. Daniel Reeves arrived with the measured pace of a man who had spent years learning that visible urgency made guests more anxious. He was 48, broad, through the shoulders, silver beginning to show at his temples, his dark suit carrying the quiet polish of someone who had worked in premium hospitality long enough to understand that tone often mattered as much as policy. Megan stepped toward him before he reached Suite 6. We have 2 premium guests and only 1 private suite available, she said. Nathan heard the sentence from where he stood near the doorway. He did not challenge Megan's intent. She was trying to summarize quickly. Still, the wording shifted the shape of the problem. One of us has the reservation, he said. Daniel looked at him, then at Megan. Let me take a look. He accepted the tablet. Suite 6. Nathan Cole. 11:30 to 12:30. No conflict in the system. No duplicate booking. No maintenance block. Daniel scrolled to Evelyn's profile next. Recognition came immediately. He knew the name. Evelyn Whitmore had been moving through Horizon Crest lounges for years. She had sent glowing notes about staff members she liked. Notes that sometimes reached senior leadership before employees heard about them themselves. She had also filed complaints with the same precision. Nothing dramatic, nothing abusive, just detailed messages with dates, names, and expectations. Daniel had seen what those messages could do to a weekly service review. He handed the tablet back to Megan. All right. Evelyn watched him from inside the suite, waiting. Nathan watched too, though with less expectation. Daniel turned toward him first. Mr. Cole, I think we may be able to make this easier. The phrase put Nathan on alert, not because it sounded hostile, but because it usually meant the facts were about to become negotiable. Daniel gestured toward the business center. There's a workstation at the far end that offers the most privacy we have outside the suites. I can also provide a dining voucher for the lounge and add 15,000 loyalty points to your account for the inconvenience. Nathan looked at him for a second. Is Suite 6 usable? Daniel blinked. No. Is my reservation invalid? No. Nathan glanced once toward the open suite, then back to Daniel. Then what are the points for? Daniel drew a quiet breath. He had expected resistance, perhaps disappointment, but not that question. We're trying to create a comfortable solution for everyone. Nathan's expression stayed neutral. It's comfortable for one of us. Nothing in his voice rose. That made the sentence harder to dismiss. Daniel looked toward Evelyn. She had turned slightly back toward her laptop, perhaps sensing that the conversation had shifted into management territory and believing management would solve it the way it usually did. Megan stood beside Daniel with the tablet held close to her waist. The reservation was still visible on the screen, unchanged, yet Suite 6 somehow seemed farther from Nathan than it had 10 minutes earlier. His phone vibrated in his pocket. Nathan pulled it out. A reminder filled the screen. Confidential board call, 12 p.m. 20 minutes. Below it sat a note from outside counsel asking him to review the final briefing before joining. Nathan's eyes stayed on the message a moment longer than before. Until now, no one else knew why the room mattered. To Evelyn, it was the suite she preferred. To Megan, it was a difficult service problem. To Daniel, it was a complaint he wanted to prevent. For Nathan, the clock had begun to matter. The call could not be taken at an open desk. The documents involved a transaction not yet public, and the legal team had made the confidentiality rules explicit. Nathan locked the phone and slid it back into his pocket. Daniel noticed the movement. "Do you have a call coming up?" Nathan looked at him. Yes. He did not elaborate. Daniel nodded slowly, as if this new fact complicated a problem that had already been simple enough. Daniel glanced toward Suite 6, then back at Nathan. "Would you mind stepping out into the hallway with me for a moment?" The request sounded routine, almost considerate, but Nathan noticed what it meant. Evelyn would remain inside the room, while he, the person whose name was on the reservation, would leave the lounge area to discuss how the problem might be solved. Nathan did not point that out. He followed Daniel through the glass doors into the quieter corridor outside. Travelers passed several yards away, pulling carry-ons toward the gates, while the lounge entrance opened and closed behind them. Daniel lowered his voice. "You mentioned you have a call coming up." Nathan checked his watch. "In 20 minutes. Is it something you could take from the business center?" Nathan shook his head. "No, it's confidential. Outside counsel will be on the call along with 2 board members. I can't discuss the material in an open area." Daniel's expression changed. Until then, he had treated Nathan's preference for privacy as something negotiable, another comfort issue to balance against Evelyn's. Now he understood that the room had a function. Nathan was not protecting quiet. He was protecting information. "I see," Daniel said. He opened the lounge management system on his tablet again and checked the suite inventory. Every other private room was occupied or reserved. The answer had been there all along, but now it carried more weight. There was one private room Nathan could legally and practically use for the meeting. Suite 6. Daniel stared at the schedule for a few seconds. He had a clean choice. Ask Evelyn to leave the room at the time her permission to use it had expired, or leave Nathan without the space he had booked for a meeting he could not move into public. Yet Daniel still hesitated. "Mrs. Whitmore has been with us a long time," he said. Nathan looked at him. "So have I." Daniel glanced down and opened Nathan's profile. The membership history stretched back years. Regular flights, long-term loyalty, Summit Elite status, no pattern of complaints, no special notes asking employees to recognize him. Daniel's eyes lingered on the account longer than necessary. He had expected a newer customer, perhaps someone unfamiliar with how the lounge handled preferred guests. Nathan watched the realization settle in. "Does that change anything?" he asked. Daniel looked up. He did not answer. Nathan gave a small nod. "It shouldn't." No accusation followed. None was needed. Daniel closed the profile and said he would speak with Megan again. Nathan returned to the lounge. 10 minutes passed. Then another 3. Suite 6 remained closed, Evelyn still visible through the narrow glass panel as she arranged her notes and adjusted her headset. Megan spoke quietly with Daniel near the reception desk. Twice Daniel looked toward the suite. Twice he looked away. Nathan checked the time. 10 minutes until noon. He was done explaining himself. He had spent enough of the morning explaining a reservation that required no explanation. He walked to an open table at the edge of the lounge, set down his bag, and removed his laptop. Around him, conversations rose and fell. A coffee grinder started behind the counter. Someone nearby joined a conference call without headphones. Nathan opened the secure meeting platform. The invitation appeared in the center of the screen. Join meeting. His cursor rested over the button. He could see Suite 6 from where he sat. The door remained shut. He looked at the people moving behind him, then at the documents waiting on his screen. Joining from here would violate the very confidentiality rules the legal team had established. Nathan moved the cursor away. His phone showed 11:59. He typed one message to the group, "I'll be late. The private room I reserved is unavailable." He sent it, closed the message window, and sat back. For the first time that morning, Horizon Crest's decision had cost him something that could not be replaced with points. Daniel returned to the reception counter and opened the incident log on his tablet. He had done this hundreds of times before. A guest complained. A service recovery failed. A manager documented the facts before the facts became someone else's version. The process was meant to create clarity. In practice, Daniel knew wording could do almost as much work as the event itself. He typed, "Guest declined alternative accommodations and remained dissatisfied." He read the line once. It was technically true. Nathan had declined the open workstation. He was still dissatisfied. But the sentence left out everything that had happened before either of those things. Megan stood beside him, watching the screen. "Should we add that Suite 6 was reserved under his name?" she asked. Daniel's thumb paused over the tablet. "I'll include the full timeline." His answer sounded reasonable, but he did not add it yet. At the water station a few feet away, Sophie Grant filled a paper cup and caught the last part of their conversation. She had not intended to become involved. She had work to finish, a flight to catch, and no relationship with anyone in the dispute. Still, the sentence on Daniel's screen stayed with her. Guest declined alternative accommodations. It made Nathan sound like a man who had been offered help and refused it. That was not what she had watched. Sophie set the cup down. "That's not how it started." Daniel turned. Megan did too. Sophie kept her voice low. No audience gathered. No phones appeared. "Excuse me?" Daniel asked. She confirmed his reservation first, Sophie said, nodding toward Megan. "Then you asked him to move." Daniel's posture stiffened slightly. "Mom, we're handling it." Sophie nodded. "I know. I'm just telling you what I heard." She picked up her water and walked back toward her table. That was all. Yet after she left, the line on Daniel's screen looked different. Megan lowered her eyes to the tablet in her own hands. She reopened the reservation. Nothing had changed. Suite 6 was still Nathan's until 12:30. She remembered the exact moment she had first checked it and told Evelyn the reservation belonged to Nathan. The truth had been simple then. Everything after that had been an attempt to make the truth more convenient. "Daniel," she said quietly. He looked at her. "We should probably return the room." Daniel glanced through the glass toward Suite 6. Evelyn was now on her call. Her headset covered both ears, one hand moving across a page of notes while she listened. She appeared settled, focused, unaware that the discussion outside had changed. Daniel pressed his lips together. He knew what asking her to leave would mean now. The interruption would be more visible, more uncomfortable, more likely to become a complaint. "Give me 5 minutes," he said. Megan looked toward Nathan. He was seated at the open table with his laptop in front of him, the meeting window still on the screen. He was not typing, he was not pacing. He was simply waiting, his face composed in a way that made Megan feel worse than anger would have. Nathan heard Daniel's answer. 5 minutes. He looked at his watch. 12:04. The meeting had already started. A small notification appeared in the corner of his laptop. Meeting in progress. 2 participants had joined, then 3. Nathan did not move the cursor toward the button. The lounge around him continued as if nothing important had happened. Coffee poured. Suitcases rolled past the entrance. Someone laughed softly near the windows. Nathan looked once toward Suite 6 and then back at the screen. The strange thing was how ordinary everything felt. Nothing around him looked unusual. The lounge kept moving while a series of ordinary decisions quietly produced a result none of them had intended. At 12:11, a notification appeared in the corner of Daniel's management screen. He almost dismissed it. The lounge system pushed reminders constantly: staffing updates, catering changes, executive visits, service reviews. This one carried a bold header: Executive Experience Review, 1 p.m., Horizon Crest Airways. Lead participant, Nathan Cole, Cole Meridian Group. Daniel's eyes stopped on the name, Nathan Cole. He looked across the lounge toward the man sitting at the open business table, laptop still untouched in front of him. Same name. Maybe coincidence. Cole was common enough, Nathan less so. Daniel opened the guest profile again. Full name, Nathan James Cole. Membership history. Contact information. Corporate affiliation partially masked in the customer-facing system. He switched to the internal executive calendar and clicked the meeting detail. Cole Meridian Group. Nathan Cole was its founder and CEO, and Cole Meridian had led the investor consortium that now held the controlling voting stake in Horizon Crest. Daniel's stomach tightened before he fully understood why. The name was familiar from company briefings, the kind of name senior managers mentioned in quarterly calls when discussing restructuring, governance, and investor expectations. Daniel read the line again. Lead participant. Nathan Cole. Behind him, Megan noticed his expression. What is it? Daniel did not answer. The lounge doors opened. Monica Ellis walked in carrying a leather folder under one arm. Daniel recognized her immediately. Almost everyone in management did. Chief Customer Officer. She had visited the Seattle lounge twice that year, both times with regional leadership following close behind. Today she was alone. Monica scanned the room, looking past the dining area, then the windows, then the business center. Her eyes found Nathan. Surprise crossed her face. Nathan? She walked toward him. Why are you out here? I thought you booked a suite for the legal call. Daniel heard every word. So did Megan. Nathan closed his laptop halfway and stood. I did. Monica looked toward the row of private suites. Her expression changed. What happened? Daniel felt the answer forming before anyone spoke. He looked at the executive calendar again. Nathan Cole, Cole Meridian Group. Then the pieces he had seen separately all morning began to connect. The consortium that had led Horizon Crest's recent recapitalization. Investor group with enough voting control to shape board decisions. The customer experience review scheduled for 1 o'clock. The man sitting at an open workstation because the private room reserved under his name was still occupied by another guest. Monica turned and saw Daniel near the counter. Daniel? He stepped forward. Ms. Ellis. Her eyes moved between him, Megan, and Nathan. Can someone tell me what's going on? No one answered immediately. Through the narrow glass panel of Suite 6, Evelyn remained on her call, unaware of the shift taking place outside. Daniel swallowed. Mr. Cole, he stopped, then tried again. I didn't realize. Nathan lifted one hand slightly, not enough to silence him sharply. Just enough to stop the sentence. You didn't need to. Daniel went still. Nathan walked to the counter and unlocked his phone. The reservation confirmation was still there, unchanged from the first time he had shown it. Suite 6. 11:30 to 12:30. He placed the phone flat on the counter between them. My title doesn't make the reservation more valid. He touched the screen once. This already did. The coffee machine kept running. A boarding announcement sounded faintly from the terminal outside. Now that Nathan's identity had surfaced, Suite 6 suddenly seemed easier to return, though nothing about the reservation had changed. Monica looked at Daniel, then at Megan. Her voice stayed calm. Is Suite 6 reserved under Mr. Cole's name? Megan answered first. Yes. Has it been since 11:30? Yes. Monica looked through the glass toward Evelyn. Then we need to correct that. Nathan said nothing. He simply picked up his phone. He had not won anything. The reservation had been valid before Monica walked in. That was the point. Monica did not raise her voice. She did not need to. I'll ask Mrs. Whitmore to step out of Suite 6, she said. Nathan gave a small nod. That's fine. He did not say because of who he was. He did not have to. The reservation had been valid before anyone connected his name to a board calendar. Monica walked to the suite and waited until Evelyn noticed her through the glass. Evelyn muted her call, removed one side of her headset, and opened the door. Monica spoke quietly, too low for the rest of the lounge to hear every word. Evelyn looked confused at first. Then her eyes moved past Monica toward Nathan. Daniel was standing nearby now, posture tighter than before. Megan had gone pale. Something in Evelyn's face changed as the pieces reached her. She ended her call, gathered her papers, and stepped into the hallway carrying her laptop against her chest. Embarrassment replaced the confidence she had worn all morning. The kind that arrives when a person realizes the room has been watching the wrong version of them. "Mr. Cole," she said, stopping a few feet away. Nathan waited. Evelyn looked down at the folder in her hand. "If I had known," Nathan met her eyes. "That's the problem." He said nothing else. Evelyn's mouth closed. For a moment, she looked as though she might explain herself, perhaps mention the morning host, her years with the airline, the note in the system. Instead, she gave a faint nod and moved toward another seating area. Nathan watched her go without satisfaction. Humiliation would have been easy now. It would also have missed the point. Monica handed him the key card for Suite 6, but Nathan did not take it immediately. "One more thing," he said. Daniel knew before Nathan asked. His hand moved instinctively toward the tablet. "The incident report." Daniel hesitated. It lasted only a second, but Nathan noticed. "Can I see it?" Daniel unlocked the screen and opened the log. Nathan read the first line. "Guests declined alternative accommodations and remained dissatisfied." He read it again. The sentence was polished, neutral, almost harmless. That was what made it dangerous. Nathan looked at Daniel. "Where does it say why I needed an alternative?" Daniel's eyes dropped to the screen. "I hadn't finished the full timeline." "Maybe not." Nathan tapped the sentence lightly. "But if someone reads this tomorrow, who sounds like the problem?" Daniel did not answer. He did not need much imagination. The note made Nathan sound unreasonable. The reservation itself had vanished from the story. So had Evelyn's use of the room after the reservation began. So had the choice to keep her there. What remained was a dissatisfied guest who refused an option. Monica's expression hardened, though her voice stayed even. "Daniel?" he exhaled. "I should have documented the reservation first." Megan stood beside him, looking at the same line. She had been quiet since Monica arrived. Now she spoke. "We knew his reservation was valid." Daniel turned toward her. Megan's hands tightened around the edge of her tablet. "From the beginning," she said. Daniel looked at her for a long second. Megan swallowed, then repeated it more clearly. "We knew." The words settled differently this time. Not as an accusation against Daniel. As an admission that included herself. Nathan noticed that. It was the first thing anyone had said all morning that did not try to soften the sequence of events. Monica looked from Megan to Daniel, then back to Nathan. "We'll correct the report." Nathan nodded. "Correct the record, not for me. For whoever reads it next." Daniel deleted the line and began again. This time he started with the reservation. Monica followed Nathan into Suite 6 and closed the door behind them. For the first time that morning, Nathan was finally inside the private room that had been reserved under his name. It came too late to recover the part of the legal call he had missed. Monica set her folder on the table harder than usual. "I want Daniel suspended pending review," she said. "Megan should come off the front desk until we know exactly what happened. I'll have an executive incident report in your inbox before the end of the day." Nathan stood by the window, looking down at the wet runway. He had been calm all morning because calm had been useful. Now with the door closed, anger finally had somewhere to exist. He had already missed the opening of a confidential meeting he was expected to lead. More than that, he had watched a company he had invested heavily in turn a simple reservation into a test of status. Horizon Crest published entire pages about consistency, trust, and guest respect. Yet for about 40 minutes his own company had kept looking for ways around a reservation that should have been honored immediately. Nathan pressed his thumb against the worn leather strap of his watch. The gesture brought back a memory he had not expected. He was 16 again, standing beside his father in the lobby of a hotel in Tacoma. His father had been there to repair part of the electrical system. They had been told to wait for a manager near the front desk. Twice, an employee had pointed them toward the service entrance. Twice, Nathan's father had explained that they were already where they had been asked to wait. On the drive home, Nathan had expected him to complain. His father had only said, "Don't wait for a title before you give somebody respect." Nathan had carried that sentence for 30 years. Now he had the title. He could use it to make Daniel and Megan feel as small as he had felt that day. He understood the temptation more than he wanted to admit. Monica watched him. "Nathan?" He turned from the window. "No one gets fired in this room." Monica frowned. "I didn't say fired. Not yet." He pulled out a chair and sat down. "No one gets protected either. Full review. Full record. If policy was ignored, document it. If training failed, document that too." Monica studied him. "You want them involved? I want them to explain their decisions while they still remember why they made them." 20 minutes later, Megan and Daniel sat across from Nathan at the conference table. Neither looked comfortable. Nathan did not give a speech. He looked at Megan first. "When you checked the tablet, what did you know?" Megan swallowed. "That Suite 6 was reserved for you." "What changed?" She stared at her hands. "I saw Mrs. Whitmore's status." Nathan nodded, then turned to Daniel. "When you arrived, what did you know? That the reservation was valid. What changed?" Daniel took longer. "I wanted the complaint to go away." The room went quiet. There it was. No one had started the morning intending to treat Nathan unfairly. They had simply chosen the easier path again and again until every inconvenience landed on the same person. By the end of the review, Nathan approved 2 changes. A valid reservation could no longer be overridden for status or preference without the holder's consent. Any exception would also carry a written record of who made the decision, why, and who was affected. Daniel kept his position, but was assigned to help build the new process. Megan's promotion review was postponed. She would complete conflict training and be evaluated again later. Nathan did not call it mercy. Monica did not call it punishment. It was accountability, measured closely enough to teach something. 4 months later, Nathan Cole returned to Seattle-Tacoma on a clear afternoon when the mountains beyond the runway were sharp enough to look painted against the sky. No one at Horizon Crest had been told he was coming. He preferred it that way. His flight east would not board for another 2 hours, so he entered the signature lounge with the same charcoal bag he had carried the last time and the same old watch at his wrist. The entrance scanner flashed green. Nathan stepped inside and immediately saw Megan behind the reception counter. She did not see him. A man in his 50s stood in front of her, expensive carry-on beside him, Summit Elite credential open on his phone. "I need Suite 4, he said. Megan checked the tablet. "Suite 4 is currently reserved, sir." The man frowned. "Always use that room when I'm here." Nathan slowed several yards away. The sentence was familiar enough to pull him back 4 months without effort. Megan did not glance toward a supervisor. She did not tighten her grip on the tablet. "I understand," she said, "but the reservation has already started." Through the frosted glass of Suite 4, 2 travelers sat across from one another preparing for a private video meeting, documents arranged neatly between them. The man at the counter followed Megan's glance. "Can't you move them somewhere else?" Megan looked back at the screen. There was no hesitation. "No, sir. They reserved the room and their time has begun." His expression cooled. "I've been Summit Elite for 12 years. I can see that." Megan scrolled once. "Suite 7 opens in 20 minutes, or I can reserve the enclosed workstation near the east window right now." He clearly disliked both options. Months earlier, that discomfort alone might have changed the decision. This time it did not. Megan did not apologize for honoring the reservation. She did not offer points to make the correct answer easier to accept. She simply waited. After a moment, the man exhaled. "Fine. Suite 7. I'll reserve it for you." She tapped the screen and handed him the confirmation. The entire exchange lasted less than 2 minutes. No manager arrived. No incident report was opened. No one needed to become important before the rule became clear. Nathan stood quietly near the entrance until the man walked away. Megan looked up to greet the next guest and finally saw him. Surprise crossed her face, followed by a small smile, that felt more earned than automatic. She stepped around the counter. "Mr. Cole, Nathan is fine." He nodded toward Suite 4. "You handled that well." Megan looked toward the frosted door. It was easier this time. "Why?" she thought before answering. "'Cause I stopped asking who would complain more." Nathan let the sentence sit. 4 months earlier, she might have dressed the answer in policy language. Now she seemed comfortable naming the mistake plainly. Megan returned to the tablet. "Do you need a suite today?" Nathan raised an eyebrow. "Did I reserve one?" Megan almost laughed. "No, then I'm good here." He walked toward an open chair beside the windows and set down his laptop. Outside, a Horizon Crest jet lifted from the runway and climbed over the gray-blue water. Another rolled into position behind it. Nathan opened his files. Around him, travelers worked, read, and watched departures without giving him a second glance. No one knew how much of Horizon Crest he controlled. No one needed to know. Across the lounge, Megan welcomed another guest, checked a reservation, and followed what the screen said. The system worked without Nathan watching over it. That mattered more than any apology he had received.